This episode is brought to you by Progressive, where drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average. Quote now at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, national average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. Now, before I do the usual This Day intro, we have a special announcement. I want to put it right here at the very top of the show. We are doing our first ever live show. It is September 13th, a Friday, in the great city of Boston. And as a New Yorker, saying those words is really tough.
You had trouble getting them out.
Come north.
I know. Kellie, we're going up to your neck of the woods, and we're doing a live show at the WBUR live event space. Radiotopia is helping us put it on. It should be very fun, right in your backyard.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a quick trip for me to get up there. But
And we have the coolest topic of all, October surprises. I know it is hard to imagine the 2024 election having any unexpected twists and turns, but traditionally something comes up in October that turns the entire race around.
So please come join us September 13th at the WBUR live event space. There's a link to buy tickets, which are on sale now in the show notes and on our website. And then the final thing, most important thing, it is Niki's birthday.
Yeah.
So we will
so you have to come out. I'm
now
spending my birthday
can we get cake?
Working.
I want cake.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they should definitely
we'll
be cake. Yeah.
All right. So go get those tickets if you're in Boston, or if you know people in Boston, spread the word, or if you want to take a trip to Boston in the fall. Beautiful. Come join us. We will see you there. All right. Now, on to today's episode. This day, August 1841, I want to paint a picture for you listeners. Maybe close your eyes and imagine this. Imagine a group of workers and some representatives in Congress, maybe a couple stragglers, tourists, standing around in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. And there's a huge wooden box there that has arrived from Italy the day before. Everyone has been anticipating the arrival of this package, and inside is a giant marble statue of George Washington that had been commissioned some 9 years before. And it is finally here. And the workers, they take out their crowbars and they pry open the sides, and the wooden sides fall to the side with a thud. And everyone gets their first look at this statue. And people start to kind of like awkwardly shuffle back and forth. A few people cross their arms and do that thing where you like cock your head to the side and you're like, interesting, as they take it all in. It's because this statue is probably not exactly what people expected. It is marble. It is huge, but we should just say it. George Washington is shirtless in this statue, the founder of our nation, a statue to celebrate his 100th birthday. And the guy is sitting on a chair, right arm raised, a robe draped over his lap and his arm, but not his torso. He's just letting it all hang out. And I don't know, Nikki and Kellie, can I just say that like he's kind of jacked? He's a little...
You were trying to get us to be horny on Maine, and I'm not going to do it, Jody.
No?
I'm not going to do
You're
it.
not feeling it? I mean, he just looks like he's doing some lat pull downs, doing
I'm
a
like,
pretty good...
George.
Right? Yeah. I'm working out.
But it is a remarkable moment and a remarkable, sculpture and a remarkable sense of who George Washington is. So let's talk about all of that stuff here, as always, Nicole Hammer of Vanderbilt and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
I have to say, your introduction kind of reminded me of the scene in A Christmas Story where they're opening up the fragile, must be Italian crate, and they pull out the leg lamp, and one person is like, ooh, and everyone else is like, I don't know about
I'm
this.
sure there were a couple of people there who were like, yes.
Let's do it.
Love it. And a bunch of people were like, and, funnily enough, Italy has a big part of this story, too, because the person who made this, right, is American, but it gets commissioned in Italy, and I just... love the idea that a bunch of Italian sculptors just were like, let's go for it. This is beautiful. What are you talking about?
It's like the David.
Right.
Exactly. So, what else do we need to know about this statue? It's 12 tons. It was made in Italy. What else?
So, U.S. Congress commissions Horatio Greenough to create this statue. It's meant to be celebrated for his birthday, February 22nd of 1732, to commemorate his birth. And I think people had envisioned, your sort of typical statue of George Washington, right? Maybe in the way that we think of like Abraham Lincoln, like sitting on a chair or sitting on a horse, standing, at some podium, something like that. Something that made him look like the statesman that he was.
And the statue itself, again, coming from Italy, it's called Enthroned Washington. So he is on this giant throne. He's holding a sword. It was based on this statue that was destroyed during late antiquity, a statue of Zeus at Olympia. And there is something, I don't know, it's a little incongruous about it. I know that, the nation's capital is very much influenced by Greek and Roman architecture.
Yeah.
And like the founders really loved Greece and Rome. But the idea of the quote unquote father of democracy being presented as Zeus on Olympus, it feels a little discordant for what George Washington is meant to stand for in the United States.
Well, let me push a little bit on that, because is there anything in here 100 years after the founding of the nation where there is this notion that the founders are starting to reach Greek god level, And is this representative of that? I mean, the very fact that Greenough thought like this is a reasonable way to portray him, that must be reflective of something about how we are starting to deify the founding fathers.
I think there's something to that. Certainly after... What is it like? Is it in 1824, right around there, that Jefferson and Adams both die on July 4th? Like, there is the sense that the founding generation has passed. At the same time, I mean, we're talking about this period that is also known as kind of the birth of Heron folk democracy in the U.S. You have Andrew Jackson, you have universal white male suffrage. So you have those two competing tensions, both that the United States is entering an age of something like mass white democracy, white male democracy, but also where the founding generation is far enough away that kind of veneration is happening, I think, across the culture.
Yeah.
But I think even if we're thinking along like these deity-like figures, no one was ready to see Washington shirtless.
Like, there's a lot of pec, a lot of abs in that photo.
No one was ready for like this buff. And this is the thing, when I think about George Washington, even if it's the picture of him like crossing the Delaware or whatever, I think of him as an older man. Kind of frail. Like, I don't see him as some sort of jack specimen. I don't see that. I see him like more like a grandpa, more like someone who might lose in a fight. Yeah, even when he's meant to look sort of statesman-like, I just can't picture him. From the neck down, at least in this picture, it's just hard to envision that is Washington.
Yeah. I just want to say I'm glad that they didn't try this with Ben Franklin. I mean, George Washington at least was like
tougher sell,
taller and leaner than some of the other founding fathers. But look, there is one other tidbit in here that does tie into this sort of deification situation, which is, well, first, so Greenough reportedly like has this vision to basically make this in the style of a Greek sculpture of a Greek god, and like his friends are kind of like, I don't know, and he's just like, we're gonna do it. I have my vision. We're going to do it. So it's like people are trying to dissuade him, even as he's sketching it out and commissioning it in Italy. It takes a long, long time to get from Italy to the United States. 44 oxen have to haul it out of where it was manufactured in Genoa up to Florence, and then it gets put on a boat. But as it's making its way, I think especially through Italy, there's this interesting phenomenon where people are seeing this statue move along, and they know it's headed to the United States. But a lot of them who are like Catholics are like, oh, this must be some saint that I don't know of. They don't, it doesn't read like it's a president or a political figure. People are really seeing it as a deified sculpture. So it accomplishes that in some sense. And I remain convinced that it's not a coincidence that they kind of went in that direction. While at the same time, I also think this Greenough guy was just trying to do something that would get attention and shake things up a little bit.
The statue, it creates some controversy when it is put on display. I mean, we've joked about the fact that he is topless, but he's also not wearing like trousers or anything. He's just kind of like got things strategically draped over his arm and his lap. And so there are lots of jokes that come out of this. The idea that he looks like he's preparing to take a bath. So George Washington about to enter the tub.
But with a sword.
But with a sword. I mean, who doesn't take their sword to the bath?
He's got
like
a sword
rubber
in his
ducky,
left hand,
right? Basically.
Yeah.
But also, like, Americans are kind of prudish in the 19th century, and there are people who are demanding that somebody cover him up, that's unseemly to be able to see the first president's nipples.
Yeah. One of my favorite photos from this is this photo of a bunch of people standing around after it had been moved outdoors outside of the rotunda. A bunch of people standing around and looking at it, and everyone is dressed in that like garb of that era, like long dresses, big hats, completely covered up. The men are wearing 3-piece suits and hats, and you don't see any skin, and they're staring up at this thing where it's just like 80% of George Washington is just hanging out.
I mean, to be fair, in Italy, a lot of the statues are naked.
Yeah, there would not be that strategically draped cloth if we were in Italy.
That's true. I guess we should think of the glass half full or the body half covered. But the other tidbit here, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but is he still wearing his wig? Like, I think he's wearing that wig, which is so great. So the idea that he's still wearing the kind of wig of the era, but then completely naked, it's like, but holding a sword, I'm like, this isn't George Enters the Tub. Something else is going on here about these.
But without the wig, who is that? We don't recognize George Washington without his wig.
That's the other part, too. Like, there's nothing here where someone, an American, would walk up and be like, oh, yeah, there's George Washington.
Yeah.
Right? All right. We've spent a lot of time on this. We don't have to spend too much, but I do think it's worth saying, like, this thing gets moved around a lot, in part because people are just a little uneasy with it. But it then eventually, I mean, it's on the second floor of the American History Museum now, so you can still go and check it out.
Can we talk about one other kind of horny statue? I feel like we would be remiss if we did not talk about the young Lincoln statue that is unveiled a century later.
Oh, yeah.
Guy is a lot leaner and less jacked than George in his statue, but still quite the, I don't know, like suave figure. His hair is kind of like put back, a little James Dean-like. His thumb is hooked in his pants, kind of pulling his waist
like
down
a
little
Klein
bit.
Model.
Right? 100. And in 1941, like a Calvin Klein model. Hairless the way these statues are. I don't necessarily have a strong physical reaction to the George Washington one, but the young Lincoln one is hot.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like Lincoln's like, hey there.
Cheekbones for days.
Like he's giving eyes, he's giving like the whole like seductive look. Like it's too much. It's too hot to handle.
And I'm a real sort of connoisseur of like botched statues. And so I love the hot young Lincoln. There's a couple of those. There's a couple other actually nude George Washingtons. And then I just love the like, there's this statue of Cristiano Ronaldo, the football player, that is just like terrible. And there's these like great videos of like it being unveiled and everyone having to like smile weakly and be like, oh, nice work there. Sometimes when you put your trust in the hands of a sculptor, you never know what's going to happen. Though we should end on this idea that, Greeno thinks he's just nailed it. He's like, I got a commission. I did my job. And a friend of his is quoted at the time as saying, this magnificent production of genius does not seem to be appreciated at its full value in this metropolis, talking about Washington, D.C. So he continues to think, no one understands my art, which,
is pure artist mentality.
Yes, to live the life of an artist is to be misunderstood.
That's right.
Exactly. There you go. All right. Well, let's leave it there. I don't want to do any else on this days. I just want to leave us with that image of George Washington's nipples and lats. Very impressive lats.
Traps are incredible.
Yeah. But we will, of course, post this picture on social and put it in the newsletter, and you can also just Google it. Maybe you can do it on incognito if you want. It's up to you. But we will leave it there. Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Radiotopia.